Let's talk about something else that's another step would be flushing and draining a water heater.
You see that a lot. It's in all the manuals. It needs to be flushed and drained, and it really depends on where you live, because in some places they have soft water. They'll have a lot of stuff in there, and you drain and flush a couple of water heaters, you don't get anything out of it, and you think, okay, well, there's not anything there. Okay, if that's your situation, then you're good to go, because it's not going to matter. But in a lot of places, the sediment buildup, because the water hardness is kind of extreme, and those water heaters need to be drained and flushed probably annually. A few very rare places, maybe even more often than that. But it's a good idea of doing the annual maintenance that you would drain and flush the water heater and see.
Okay.
The easy way to do that is to turn the cold water supply off.
Okay.
And then put a garden hose on the drain valve and open the drain valve. And you're probably only get a couple of cups of water out of it. It's going to vapor lock on the top. And so then what you want to do is pop the T&P open and let some air get in the water heater. And then that will get a couple of gallons out of there. And if a couple of gallons of water, you know, if it's kind of milky, then you might even drain it as much as the whole tank. You want to keep draining it until it's kind of...
So we want it to be clear is what
you
we're
want to drain it
looking
until the water looks like it does on the cold water side.
But and that's all going to depend on, you know, your water in your area. You may need to do it more than once a year.
You may need to, but most places once a year would be enough. When you one of the reasons that we want to turn the cold water off first and drain it with the cold water off, okay, is because we are trying to drain whatever has collected in the bottom. We're trying to flush that out.
Right.
That cold water is going through a dip tube down to the bottom that has been designed to actually stir all that business up and flush it out every time you use hot water. Okay, so since we don't want to do that, in this one instance, we want to turn the cold water off. We don't want cold water flushing through that dip tube. We want that to let those sediments kind of to stay down in the bottom of that tank, so we can kind of rinse all of those out of the bottom. That's at least the theory behind that. Now, when you do that, you're going to have drained usually a gallon or a couple of gallons of water from that tank, and you want to make sure that you fill that tank back up.
Right.
So you want to turn the cold water supply back on, and you want to turn a hot water faucet on and let it run for a couple of minutes to get all the air out. Usually, it's not that big a deal on a gas water heater. Very important, however, on an electric water heater.
Yes.
If you drain several gallons out of an electric water heater and you don't get all the air out of it, then you could dry fire the upper element. So you don't want to do that. So always make sure when you're done with that draining and flushing that you run the hot water for a couple of minutes and get all the air out of the tank. So that's
Yeah, and it's a good idea. You know, you can open up all the hot water faucets just to make sure you get all the air out of the tank. I let it run for a few minutes, and just to make sure, because especially on an electric water heater, you do run the risk of dry firing the upper element, because usually on a cold tank, especially if the tank is cold, the first thing on an electric water heater is the upper element's going to come on first. So very important step.
Trusted and professional, Casey's Plumbing Service.